Ladies and gentlemen, there comes a time when the world shifts, not because of politics, not because of power, but because of purpose. What we're witnessing right now, as headlines flash across our screens and fear settles into conversation, is not just a military maneuver. It's not simply about retaliation, deterrence, or dominance. What we are seeing is something deeper, something older, something that speaks to the very soul of leadership, vision, and survival. Israel's recent strike on Iran wasn't just an act of war. It was a statement, a declaration, a defining line drawn in the sand between existing and thriving, between surviving and standing for something greater. Because in the world of great nations, as in life, the real danger is not the external threat. The real danger is the slow erosion of identity, the passive surrender to fear, and the acceptance of mediocrity over mission. Middle motivational core message: when a nation acts, when a people rise, not in anger, but in alignment with their deepest convictions. It's because something more powerful than weapons is at play. Clarity of purpose. You see, the real reason behind this bold move wasn't just a response to nuclear tension or a counterstrike on infrastructure. That's what the surface shows. But leaders don't lead from the surface. They lead from why, and the why here is rooted in history, in survival, in vision. It's about protecting the future by refusing to let it be written by others. It's about reminding the world, we are still here. We will not be erased. We will not apologize for our existence. We will lead our people with courage, and we will stand tall even when the world turns its back. This isn't just about missiles and military intelligence. It's about moral intelligence. It's about reclaiming the narrative. When you're pushed to the edge, you either fall or you fly, and this was a moment of flight in every great struggle, personal or geopolitical. There is a moment when you must ask yourself, who are we? What do we stand for? And what are we willing to do to protect that answer? This moment, this strike, this decision. It is less about destruction and more about declaration. The declaration that even in a fractured world, conviction matters. That principle still has a place. That peace is not born from silence, but from courageous clarity. True power doesn't come from politics. It comes from clarity of purpose. The surface of global affairs may seem to suggest that decisions are shaped by strategic alliances, economic interests, or military necessity. But underneath all of that, the most enduring and transformative actions come from an unshakable sense of why. Israel's decision to strike was not made merely in response to provocation or out of pressure from political forces. It was made from a place of identity, history, and unwavering belief in its right to exist and protect its people. That level of certainty doesn't arise from a policy manual or a meeting room. It is born from decades, even centuries, of knowing exactly who you are, why you're here, and what you're willing to do to stay. In your personal life, your relationships, your career, and your mission, the same truth applies. You cannot afford to operate from a place of reaction. You must move from a place of vision. When your actions are guided by a deep understanding of your purpose, everything changes. You no longer waste time seeking approval or fearing criticism. You begin to filter decisions not through the lens of what's safe or popular, but through what aligns with your purpose. Israel didn't act to impress anyone. It acted because its very essence demanded it. It acted from a place that said, this is who we are, and this is what we stand for. The world may not always understand that, but it will always respect it. In a world that often values convenience over conviction, it's easy to drift. It's easy to get lost in the noise, to compromise your values for comfort, to follow trends instead of truth. But the people and nations who make history are those who live with intentionality. They don't allow temporary circumstances to rewrite permanent principles. Purpose is the compass that keeps you on course when storms rage around you. It gives you the strength to say yes when it's hard and no when it's even harder. Without it, you're just reacting, chasing one fire after another, constantly moving but never arriving. There is an inner engine that starts to roar when you align your decisions with your deeper why. It gives your actions weight. It gives your voice strength. People begin to listen, not because you speak louder, but because you speak with direction. Nations begin to take notice, not because of brute force, but because of bold purpose. And that's where the difference lies between ordinary action and legacy, defining impact. That's the difference between reacting to pressure and responding to a mission. Israel could have waited, remained passive, or simply spoken in empty declarations. But clarity of purpose doesn't let you sit still. It compels you to move, to speak, to act with intentional force that shifts outcomes and reshapes futures. Never apologize for who you are or what you stand for. The moment you begin to dilute your identity to make others comfortable is the moment you begin to disappear. Israel's strike was not simply a message to its adversaries. It was a message to the world that its existence is non-negotiable. It was a powerful declaration that said, "We do not seek conflict, but we refuse to be erased." That level of boldness doesn't come from arrogance. It comes from identity. When you know who you are, and more importantly, when you accept it without shame, the world is forced to respond to you differently. You're no longer begging for respect. You command it simply by showing up authentically and unapologetically. This principle goes far beyond geopolitics. It reaches into the core of human experience. In a world obsessed with conformity, people who dare to stand in their truth are often misunderstood, criticized, or rejected. But the alternative, erasing your values, diluting your message, or minimizing your voice, comes at a far greater cost. When you hide your identity for acceptance, you trade temporary comfort for long-term emptiness. You may win applause in the moment, but you lose yourself over time. The world doesn't need more imitation. It needs more bold authenticity. And that begins with refusing to apologize for your presence, your beliefs, or your truth. There is immense power in being rooted. Trees that grow tall don't apologize for their height. They anchor deeply into the earth, withstand storms, and rise with dignity. In the same way, people and nations rooted in their values don't ask for permission to be who they are. They don't seek validation from critics or enemies. They understand that their survival depends on standing firm, not on seeking agreement. Israel's decision was not about winning favor. It was about preserving identity. That same mindset must be adopted by anyone who wishes to live with integrity and purpose. You don't have to be aggressive or hostile to be firm. You just need to be unwavering. The need to be liked or accepted is natural, but it must never override the need to be real. There will always be people who challenge you, who question your motives, who try to redefine you for their own comfort or control. But that's not your burden to carry. Your burden is to remain true to what you know is right, to speak even when your voice shakes, to show up even when you're misunderstood, to stay grounded even when the world tells you to bend. In moments of pressure, identity is either lost or solidified. The choice is always yours, and in the face of scrutiny, criticism, or chaos, the strongest thing you can ever do is look the world in the eye and say, "This is who I am, and I will not apologize for it." Leadership is not about being liked, it's about doing what's right, especially when it's hard. The hardest decisions a leader will ever make are not the ones that win applause, but the ones that carry weight. True leadership reveals itself when stakes are high, when risks are real, and when comfort is no longer an option. Israel's move wasn't about public opinion or media perception. It was about principle. It was a hard choice, a controversial choice, but a necessary one in the eyes of those who understand that leadership often means stepping into discomfort with full awareness of the consequences. In that moment, what mattered most was not consensus, it was courage. Too often, people confuse popularity with leadership. They believe leading means pleasing, that it means walking the middle road, avoiding conflict, or ensuring no one is offended. But the truth is, real leaders are rarely comfortable, and they are never universally loved. Their decisions are questioned, their motives are doubted, and their character is tested. But they press forward anyway, not because it's easy, but because it's essential. The world doesn't change because someone wanted to be liked. It changes because someone had the strength to act according to what they knew was right, even when everyone else was silent or scared. Leadership is not defined by titles, uniforms, or authority. It's defined by the willingness to take responsibility when no one else will. It's about standing up, speaking truth, and doing what others avoid, not for attention, but for alignment with a greater mission. The moment of decision is often lonely. You won't always have a cheering crowd. You may even face criticism from those you thought were allies. But leadership isn't about consensus. It's about conviction. When the pressure mounts, leaders step forward, not because they're fearless, but because their purpose is stronger than their fear. When you're a leader of a family, a team, a business, or a nation, you carry the weight of others' hopes, fears, and futures. That weight can feel overwhelming, but leadership isn't about carrying it perfectly. It's about carrying it willingly. The ability to make tough calls, to see beyond the immediate and act for the long term, is what separates reactive managers from transformational leaders. Israel didn't react with panic. It acted with purpose. It didn't wait for everyone to agree. It took responsibility for its security, its sovereignty, and its story. In your own life, this principle is no different. You will be called to lead in moments when it would be easier to stay silent. You will face choices that require you to risk misunderstanding, to make unpopular moves, to choose integrity over acceptance. In those moments, your real character is revealed, not in how loud you speak, but in how firmly you stand. Leadership is forged in fire, and every hard choice you make is a step deeper into the person you're becoming, the legacy you're building, and the example you're setting for those who are watching, whether you know it or not. Action delayed is purpose denied. In moments of rising tension and looming threats, hesitation becomes the silent assassin of destiny. Israel's choice to strike wasn't born from impulse. It was born from a deep understanding that waiting for the perfect moment is often the perfect excuse. The longer you wait, the louder the doubts become, the more permission fear has to rewrite your priorities, and the easier it becomes to justify inaction under the mask of strategy or diplomacy. But there comes a point when waiting is no longer wisdom, it's avoidance. When your future, your values, or your security is on the line, delaying action only deepens vulnerability. In your life, there are dreams you haven't acted on, relationships you haven't repaired, risks you haven't taken, not because you don't care, but because you're waiting. Waiting for the timing to feel right, waiting for approval, waiting for a sign that guarantees you'll succeed. But life rarely offers such clarity. The leaders, the nations, and the individuals who move history forward understand that the right time is not something you wait for. It's something you create. The bold do not wait to be backed into a corner to act. They see the signs early, and they move with intention, not because it's easy, but because they know that time is the one thing they can never reclaim. Israel's action was not about aggression. It was about initiative. It was a statement that said, "We see what's coming, and we refuse to sit idly by while threats gather strength." This mindset applies universally. In business, in personal development, in relationships, the principle remains: the longer you hesitate, the more control you give to forces beyond your command. You begin to live life in reaction rather than creation. And eventually, you're not living at all. You're merely managing crises that could have been avoided if you had moved earlier, with vision and resolve. Delaying action often comes disguised as prudence, but it can quickly evolve into paralysis. We tell ourselves stories to justify the wait. I'm not ready. Maybe tomorrow. I need more time to prepare. But readiness is rarely a feeling. It's a decision. It's the understanding that imperfect action beats perfect inaction every single time. The greatest breakthroughs, innovations, and victories in human history did not come from flawless plans. They came from people willing to move before it was comfortable, before the crowd agreed, before certainty was within reach. There is a high cost to waiting, and it's not always visible in the moment. Every delay shapes your future, not by what you gain, but by what you lose momentum, confidence, opportunities that don't return. Israel's decision to act early wasn't just strategic, it was symbolic. It sent a message that said, "We will not hand over our fate to chance or hesitation." That message echoes far beyond borders and headlines. It reminds every individual that the time to act is rarely announced with fanfare. It is felt in the gut, seen in the cracks forming on the horizon, and confirmed in the silence of those waiting for someone else to go first. Every action you take declares what you believe about yourself. It's not just about strategy or circumstances. It's about identity, value, and intention. The recent move by Israel wasn't just military. It was psychological, emotional, and deeply symbolic. It was a statement, loud and clear. We will not be passive. We will not be defined by threats. We define ourselves. That kind of declaration doesn't come through words. It comes through action. It's a universal principle that extends far beyond nations and warfare. In your own life, every choice you make, how you show up, how you speak, how you respond to fear or conflict, tells the world who you think you are and what you think you deserve. We often overlook how much power there is in action. People spend endless hours crafting the right message, planning the right move, calculating the perfect outcome. But ultimately, your actions become your identity. You don't become brave by thinking about courage. You become brave by choosing to do the hard thing. You don't build confidence by hoping to feel secure. You build it by stepping forward even when you're uncertain. Every time you take action in alignment with your values, you reinforce your worth, not just to others, but to yourself. There's a reason people who move with conviction are remembered. They don't wait for affirmation. They declare their own value through what they do. When Israel chose to take a stand, it didn't need to explain itself to the world. The action alone was the message. And in life, you don't need to explain yourself to everyone either. The way you act in the face of pressure speaks volumes about what you believe you're worth. Do you shrink back to protect your comfort? Or do you step forward because you know your mission matters? We live in a culture that often encourages passive validation, hoping people notice your worth without you having to prove it. But that's not how legacy is built. You declare your value through movement, through standing up when it's easier to sit down, through speaking truth when silence is the safer option, through protecting your peace, your purpose, your people, not with excuses, but with action. People may not always agree with what you do, but they will always respect the clarity of someone who moves with purpose. You are constantly communicating to the world what kind of person you are, not just with your words, but with how you move, what you tolerate, what you fight for, and what you let go of. Every boundary you set, every challenge you accept, every time you push through fear, you're telling the world and yourself that you matter, that your values matter, that your future matters. There's a kind of quiet strength in acting with that kind of intentionality. It creates a ripple, not just around you, but within you. It reinforces your own sense of worth, purpose, and identity with every decisive step forward. You weren't born to blend in. You were born to break through. In a world that constantly encourages conformity, where safety is found in silence and comfort is worshipped over conviction, there is something deeply powerful about choosing to live with unwavering belief in who you are and what you stand for. The bold are often misunderstood at first. The pioneers, the disruptors, the visionaries, whether nations or individuals, are rarely welcomed with applause. They are questioned, resisted, even vilified. But in the long arc of history, the ones who shape the future are not the ones who followed the rules written by others. They are the ones who rewrote the script with the ink of conviction. Israel's bold action wasn't a move designed to earn global approval. It was a decision made in the furnace of sovereignty and survival. It wasn't meant to be digestible or popular. It was meant to be clear asterisk, and that clarity, whether liked or not, is what commands attention. That's the lesson. The world does not respect noise. It respects conviction. When you walk in certainty, even those who oppose you are forced to acknowledge your presence. Conviction is magnetic. It draws loyalty. It sparks change. It challenges the complacent and gives courage to the silent. This principle applies to every facet of life. Whether you're building a business, leading a community, raising a family, or carving out your own identity in a world that wants you to fit in, the same truth applies. You must choose to lead with your values, not the opinions of others. Conviction isn't about being aggressive or loud. It's about being anchored. It's the ability to stay rooted in who you are, even when winds of doubt, criticism, or fear try to shake you loose. When you speak from conviction, you don't have to shout. You just have to stand. And that stand becomes louder than any speech ever could. The problem most people face is not lack of opportunity. It's lack of alignment. They know what they want, they know what they believe, but they mute themselves out of fear of rejection. And in doing so, they betray the very essence of who they are. They trade legacy for comfort. They trade growth for approval. And eventually, they wonder why their life feels so far from what they imagined. But conviction changes that. It brings everything into focus. It allows you to move with force, not because you're reckless, but because you're resolved. It gives you the courage to say yes to your mission and no to anything that distracts from it. There's a reason why the world eventually follows those who refuse to follow it blindly. It's because deep down, people are drawn to strength, not the kind that dominates, but the kind that endures. Conviction is the foundation of endurance. It carries you when momentum fades. It drives you when emotions waver. It anchors you when circumstances spin out of control. When you live and lead with conviction, you are no longer reacting to the world. You are reshaping it with every choice, every move, every message you live out through your actions.